my brain fried a little bit and I said, I'm not doing any content for the rest of the week. And then I was like, okay, well, I do want to do a recap video.
Gotta yap
So,
about it. You
yeah,
did the
because
event, now we gotta yap
I
about
want
it.
to talk about it, guys. Hello, everyone, for joining me and Ybreezy. I always feel like I put a little Ybreezy to make it sound.
I think that's why Wonderland says it with two Z's because of that.
Oh, how does he
And
say it? What does that sound like?
he says Ybreezy
The
as
Ybreezy.
well.
So you're
Yeah, it's
Italian.
just like there's just like a Italian twang to it. No matter who says it, and it's fine. It's cool. I like it.
Yeah, why
I like.
not?
I
How?
had the Muppets pizza.
A
I'm an honorary member
pizzerizzo.
of the.
A
Yeah, I'm
pizza
an honorary
pizza.
member of the club.
So yeah, so I invited you because I want to talk about this weekend's results because we are 1 week and 3 days into Set Seven's meta, and so I casted one tournament this weekend, and JDZ Quest casted another. So
Hmm.
I was like tunnel vision on my tournament, and I was like, wow, look at it,
Right.
look at it, look at it. But then something crazy happened. I looked at the top eight of the one that JDZ Quest casted, which was the IncInk Invitational,
The ink.
and it looked very different.
Yes,
Yeah, and
it
so
did.
we're gonna look over both of them just because I think that there were surprises, and I think that I don't know how next weekend. So next weekend is a Charlie's Collectible Showcase,
It's a big one
8K
too.
plus 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 depending.
Hmm.
And what is it gonna be like? I don't know. Based on these results, I
The unknown
truly
is
don't know.
scary.
Yeah. So did you watch some coverage? I saw you in my chat. So I know you
I
watched a little bit of
I
mine.
watched. Yes. I was in there. Watching the game, seeing how Lorcana Bro was gonna do because gotta show the fandom. Gotta represent, and yeah, it was a fantastic event. You killed it, by the way.
Thank
You
you.
banished it. My bad. I'm
I
sorry. I'm sorry.
banished it.
You
It's
banished it. You absolutely vanished. It was a fantastic experience watching that stream specifically.
What a crazy thing it is, though, to do those because I was doing the OBS, I was looking at chat,
For
I'm looking
sure.
at, my brain fried a little bit and I said, I'm not doing any content for the rest of the week. And then I was like, okay, well, I do want to do a recap video.
Gotta yap
So,
about it. You
yeah,
did the
because
event. Now we gotta yap
I
about
want
it.
to talk about it, guys. So, the breakdown of the tournament that I casted was surprising to me because 50% of them I was like, okay, 50% of them are going to be Sapphire Steel, obviously. No, 50% was Emerald Steel. How did you get in here? Who let him in?
It's exactly what the big bad of the set was. That's exactly who let him in. It was Sapphire Steel getting absolutely blasted, getting flattened throughout the event, and just not winning as much. They played the field. They were like, you know what? I can beat Sapphire Steel if they have no cards in their hands, and that's exactly what they did this event, and it paid off.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because I remember hearing Wonderland talk to somebody about like, oh, I mean, this meta, it's hard because if they have cards, then they have so many answers, and then somebody said, I mean, what if they just had no cards? And then
Yeah,
people took that
and
to heart. People said that is a good point. What if you had no cards? Uh,
it worked.
to a certain extent because none of these decks made it to the final two. So that is the other sad story is we've seen that a few times where a deck can make it to the top eight, but then at the top eight it's like, actually, I have to go home. I didn't realize
Your
how hard it
bracket
was.
was interesting though, because like a lot of those like amethyst steals and emerald steals were in the other half of the bracket, and the sapphire steals on the other end as well.
That's a good point. And that can sometimes false make it or give you that kind of, oh, that deck's not as good, but that's false. So yeah, this is the bracket that ended up being
Yeah,
how it worked out. So you're right. They did put
it only played one matchup against emerald steel, and it was that was the only experience we got in this, and then the other half just emerald steel and emerald amethyst all the way.
which I always feel like I know that they don't pick these based on how cool the plot is. It's based on your seed. That's important. But like the plot matters because then sometimes it
It
feels like a
does.
bummer when like one Amber Steel deck makes it in and it or two and they both have to face each other. And you're like, well,
Yeah,
come on,
it
that's
feels
not
bad.
fair.
Yeah.
So I do agree, but there was a spicier deck. It was funny because everyone's like, "There's a pirates deck," and so I was like, "Oh, this is the pirates deck." Because look, Smee's in there, and Pete Space Pirate.
No.
No, these are just a deck with pirates, not a pirate deck. But this was piloted by Parker Knudsen, and I like this deck because it had Anna. I love seeing Anna, but
That's an interesting card. It's an interesting tool. Like I like the fact that it's a two of. It just offers an extra solution to a lot of different problems that it might come up against. Like if you have a damage character, that just you just pinged or it targeted something. You have no other removal done on that. It does the job. It just does what it needs to do, which is get rid of some of the stickier situations.
Yeah, and Parker was faced up against another kind of interesting deck, and that is going to be this one here, which is more a kiwi bird adjacent. Now, I hate using that term
Yeah,
because I feel like it's so academic. Like, oh, have you? Do you know the kiwi bird riot hall? But it is like I would consider a more aggro, as he had titled it.
right.
It's just let's go fast. We don't need to ramp. We don't need items really. I mean, we do have
Who
four,
does?
but those are to draw cards. But the
Those are just for battle and just to draw cards, right? Like we're not doing anything else with them to just draw one and play Bell. That's it. That's all it's there for, and it's good. It's
yeah, but
fine.
drawing cards is really cool. So
Who doesn't like drawing cards? And like
well,
it's cool.
you saw you said oh it's just for Bell, but there's one other card. Did you notice the card that's kind of a difference maker here that makes items somehow a little bit more useful?
Oh, the gleam,
Yeah, which is kind of
yeah.
interesting. A one cost inkable, and it gives you reach. So if you have for some reason, four ink, two popsicles, and two
And a
gleams,
dream.
then you got four lore. And so I
Yeah.
think in a meta where it sometimes feels like with Ruby, they put you at this point where they're like, you're not going any further than this point, you big stupid. I think
Hmm.
something with reach becomes a lot more valuable, but I have not thought about this card. I don't remember it existing. And then I saw it yesterday. Have you seen this in other blue steel
No,
decks?
no. But this is the exact thing of like this. This is Sapphire's gathering your knowledge, and you're a big fan of the card. It's essentially that, but just
And
Sapphire
inkable and
five.
cheaper. Yeah, it's like that, only like cooler because
Yeah.
looking at this deck, it also made me think of if adding a 6 cost Tamatoa could add some value, because then you get that like recycling engine going where you're
Hmm.
banishing items, you're getting back, you're drawing cards later in the game, because noticeably there's no Hiram, so you don't have
Right.
that card draw engine. So part of me wondered if two of the cute little inkable
Hmm.
happy as a clam Tamatoa could make this deck also fun, but obviously it worked, got him
Do
to.
you think they cut it because it might have been potentially too expensive? Because
Yeah, I mean this
because
deck's
of
pretty low.
stakes.
Yeah, this deck is very, very, very low to the ground. I mean, we have
Hmm.
4 cogs worth, and that's the peak. Once cogs are out, they're like, that's it. So,
Right.
but I do
And
wonder.
Doc is obviously just keeps remaining being one of the best two drops in the game as well.
Yeah,
Uh, it's just such a powerful tool in the Kiwi, the aggro lifestyle that the birds live essentially.
the birds, even though there's
The birds.
notably no birds in this deck, but that's okay. Ironically, Mr. Smee is being pinched by crabs. Are they working with Tamatoa? We don't know.
Maybe.
So that was the round. Parker went against Ryan, and Ryan was victorious there. But then we talk about the other decks in the bracket. We had an Emerald Steel mirror match. So we had
Oh,
Richard here, who's the non pirate green steel, but you can see is some teching for some item hate.
we gotta have them on all the time. It's just needed. We need to hate items, and we are doing that with Fine and Platinum. And yeah, that's essentially what we need to do in order to beat those pesky trinket loving decks.
For my trinkets. Because, yeah, we have 2 Benjas, 1 Fine and Platinum. So, not like really a ton of item removal, but then we see card. Card discard, and then we got that heavy with your Ursula, who can sing Sun and Chill twice. We have Lucifer, who's a very annoying card because I want him to be
Yeah.
so much better than he is.
I think it has a better position this format. I was talking to Kurt Spice, who played two of in the LCCC, and he was talking about how essentially the songs in the format are really good, and the only actions that are being played are just like songs. And if they have it, they're going to remove a really powerful tool, and if they don't, which they're running a lot less of, then they get rid of two cards, and it's just a win-win, and it feels very solid having that one up in my opinion.
Yeah. It's always so hard when you're like,
Five
uninkable,
uninkables
2 strength, 2 willpower.
stinks.
Like, I didn't even know that's legal to have something cost 5 but be a 2/2. I was like, that
Hmm.
seems like we should call our governor, but
Uh,
I don't know if he'd listen.
the
But then pirates. This is a pirate deck. We might have seen pirates.
pirates.
Yes, and this was piloted by a 12-year-old, by the way, all the way to the top 8. So I'm always
Y-
intimidated, scared.
yeah, the children of this game are absolutely ruthless, and as we can see, this list is quite ruthless as well. It's playing the evil cards to get to the where he did.
Yeah, it's pirates and locations. If I mean, we got Nottingham, Hidden Cove, Deville Manor. So yeah, it's just a deck that is very, very different than
Hmm.
most of the Emerald Steels that were there that day, and most that you will see. So I'm very impressed with this deck list, and I do think items are just, locations are a funny thing in general. Just to be like, what are you gonna do about that? And it's not a huge trade in the sense that it's a tempo, because I mean, it's not gonna hurt your opponent, but it does exert them and give you a chance to basically lean into them while they're busy trying to get rid of Deville Manor.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of resource usage for a bunch of little annoying locations, and alongside with the locations, you get to benefit from it, right? With you have four copies of Daisy Duck that you don't really see a lot of. It's a new addition to this. To I feel like since set six, the being able to draw a card every time a pirate quests in a location is quite heavily because guess what? Most of our hand and deck is just pirates. So most of the time, we're gonna send a pirate to a location, quest them, and then draw a card. It's just a very powerful tool alongside with the Pete shift line. That I'm in love with this Pete shift line, by the way. Being able to
Mm-hmm.
avoid an action to turn of, and then saying, by the way, now you can't sing.
Yeah, I'm just
Insane.
I don't want peace. I want problems only. And with Shifty Pete, and then also that John Silver that we haven't seen for a very long time, where if he's at or for it doesn't have to be at a location, just locations existing. If you drop 3 locations, suddenly he has resist 3 and quest for 3, which
It's
is
very powerful.
very
Yeah,
annoying. I mean.
annoying indeed.
So I love this deck, and I didn't get to see him on a featured match, but I will probably go back and watch that because I just want to know how that work. But I assume it'd be fun, and it's kind of what I want to build because I don't know, locations
How
are
do you
always.
feel about the amount of I find them, I find them people are running in these lists? Because we saw the other two, I believe they were running one of. This one hates items more. It's running two. And I think in my opinion, two feels right. Like it's inkable. You don't need to worry about it. And you want to find it in a field of trinket decks.
Yeah, I mean, I can say I casted 1 Zan match and 3 Lorcana Bro / Aaron match, and all of them had a moment where I was like, I bet somebody wishes they could find them in Platinum right now. Because it
Right.
gets to a point where, like, sometimes it's just 2 or 3 items, and you're like, whatever, it's not a big deal.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's sometimes where it feels like maybe they're just doing a deck check because their entire deck's on their board. Uh, so I think I don't know. I'd love to see how much success people have with it. I didn't get to see anyone fire it off because a lot of the matches I watched uh, didn't run it because they were themselves running blue steel, or
Hmm.
amethyst steel is like, I don't care, I just gotta go fast. So I don't know. I'm interested to see though as it goes on. Are people still gonna be afraid? But as you said, it's a song. At least 2 characters in this deck can sing it. Okay, so yeah, I guess not a lot of people are singing the song, but it could be what you need to get that lucky dime just out of there. But then the other problem is then the crab just gets it back. So
Yeah,
is it
you
worth it
can't
knowing
win
that
it.
it's just delaying the pain?
But like that's all we need, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
our
true.
locations are gonna gain that lore every turn, regardless. And if you can really make our John Silver this big, beefy, resist 5, lore 5 kind of situation, then it's fine if you get to delay it. And I think that's it's cool. Pirates are cool. Play pirates.
So okay, so Chase was playing against. I misspoke. Chase was playing against. Wait, Shan. Oh my gosh. See, here's the thing. This is my. You guys always hear me talk about this. Everybody has 30 names, but Chase
Yeah.
100% was on Pirates.
Mhm.
Richard M. Okay, so Richard M played against a different person. So his list is very similar to. There's so many green
But
steels.
there's a lot of green steels play against green steels, and it is a little confusing.
And there's just Derek. Who's Derek? I don't know. But this was the other green steel one, which was a little different here. And that is one that had a Gantu, which
Gonto.
just one for fun.
They wanted to test it for sure.
This one's a little spaghetti where you've got just like a little one here, one here, one here. And you're like, I don't know. One of these is going to work probably. But
Hmm.
noticeably, there's also Heffalumps and Woozles, which is quite fun, where they can't quest and you have to draw a card, which, sure, that's fun. I mean,
It's not terrible, right? Because like we really do not want the Tommy 6 2 quest
yeah, or Hiram.
because
I mean,
or a Hiram or anything like that. So like making sure that those again, a lot of these decks, in my opinion, got created because they just hate Sapphire Steel. and they wanted to make sure they can stop the things that they do so well, which in this case, when that Tommy 6 quests and you see a lucky dom on the field, you absolutely hate everything around you for about like 10 seconds. And making that one turn later might be pivotal. And I think it's an interesting card. I always love that card. The art is phenomenal,
I
and
know.
it just
And you get to
drawing
draw a
card is
card,
good.
right? I mean, it's anytime where it's like I get to do something that's kind of fun and I get to draw a card, then I'm like, well, now I'm in.
Right.
That's all I needed to hear is problem, and I get to draw a card.
Hmm.
And and all these actions become a lot more sweeter in a meta where that giant cobra is hanging around, which he doesn't really do much, but it feels good sometimes to be like, you can't quest, and by the way, that means you're gone. Actually, you can't quest because you're in
Right.
the banish pile.
Right.
So those were the four of the green steel madness. They all had their own little flavor, but all of them kind of rhymed. I'm glad to see that space pirate in there because, like you said, it's kind of like a extender on the
Hmm.
usefulness of
Right.
Pete. But I am surprised to see Beast in there because Beast becomes super fragile in a Sapphire Coral world.
Hmm.
Sapphire Coil. Um, he's very delicate, and he can
Right.
easily be just Sisu'd away with a little Sisu. Like all it takes is a Sapphire Choir plus of Daring Visitor.
Right.
But we
And this
saw him
feels
in a couple
bad.
decks, so apparently it works out. Don't be afraid of a Sapphire Coil.
It's just that the only deck it's like, well, I guess if you want to take Emerald Sapphire very seriously, I'm sorry, Knife, I'm so sorry, but like if you do want to take that seriously, then maybe you'll see that. But other than Sapphire Ruby, we don't really have to worry about it. And with the Steel Sapphire again, I'm sorry, I'm just doom talking, but
Mm-hmm.
even though the results aren't too great this weekend, but it still gets rid of a little bit of that Ruby Sapphire situation. And if you don't have it, stealing the Steel Beast ain't bad.
Yeah. So moving to another, like speaking of Sapphire, I think Ruby Sapphire is
Right
just as
here.
annoying as Sapphire Steel because they're
Yep.
both saying, "Hey, I'm gonna remove some of your stuff, and I'm gonna be a problem." And this one's a more violent removal than I think Steel is. It's This deck is another one where I feel like they hedge their bets a lot on some of these card totals. Like I'm surprised with Sapphire Coil that they only have two Sisu Daring Visitors because I just feel like that's such a fun free
Right.
removal. But they're going a few different directions. We got two of each crab. See how that works out. Two
Mhm.
Medusas, two monsters, dragons. Even you know what? For fun, let's put a Great Stone Dragon in there. Let's make Tomas feel good. And one, be prepared.
One isn't enough. I'm sorry. I need my safety blankie if I'm playing this deck. I just need to be held accountable for my actions. I need to be able to be like, okay, I need help. Let me call help, and I can play this card. So one just feels wrong. I know people are actually kind of removing it from the talks I've seen, but like you need it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I need my safety blanket at all times.
Yeah, and I guess with Sapphire Coil, suddenly Sisu becomes a lot more like a Be Prepared because in theory, you get to whenever you ink. So if you are inking twice per turn, you're using that Stone Dragon, you're using Sail, then Sisu,
Mhm.
if there's three characters on the board and one meets the criteria. So I mean, you can use Sapphire Coil to make Sisu like a Be Prepared, but only for one
Right.
person. So maybe I'm guessing that's why.
Maybe.
Um, but like you said, Be Prepared is just so powerful where it feels bad leaving it at home. I'm like, I don't want to leave it. This could
Yeah, it's like I would like at least two, because like you're right. Sisu is essentially a one-sided beat prep these days with how many sapphire coils there are. Like, people can easily even baby Sisu Chernobog, and that shouldn't be legal in my honest opinion. Like, it
Yeah.
just doesn't seem right, doesn't sound right, because like the thing with it, you can just ramp up once if you have two sapphire coals, and you're eliminating the entire board. But I need my safety blanket regardless. I just can't do it without it. The life doesn't feel right without B prep.
Riddle me this. I have not seen this in play, but if you are playing a Sapphire Coil and you have two Sapphire Coils out and you ink twice a turn, does that mean you get four triggers for Sapphire? Oh my gosh.
Bingo, and that's exactly how
Ooh.
Chernobog gets Seasued, and
Well,
it's
yeah,
tough.
that's too much.
Yeah.
It should say, yeah, once per turn you're allowed to do this. Because, yeah, just being like it's an unlimited nerfing coupon seems like
Hmm.
greedy. Uh,
Yeah, uh, which is interesting because they're not running any quills, and like you would think you
yeah,
would
just ink
want
this.
one
Yeah.
ink forever.
I think though, since we're still in that second week, I think a lot of people are kind of going the go wide strategy of like, well,
Hmm.
let's see what actually works out here. Because not only do you have the decks that we know we're going to fear, which is why you see a
Right.
hideaway, but then you fear like, I don't even know what kind of weird stuff I'm going to see. Pirates, don't expect that. So I think maybe that's why sometimes you see texts where you're
Hmm.
like, what's the plan? And they're like, well, my plan is I have plan A through D, and we're going to see where we go with it. Uh,
Anything can happen. Yeah.
but Max did go ahead and get this all the way to the top eight. But he faced against a very formidable foe, a person who did not lose an entire game until the last game.
Until when it mattered
Yeah,
the
well, they
most.
all,
No.
I mean, they all mattered, unfortunately. And
They
that
all
is,
matter.
you know him, you love him. It's the Lorcana bro of WCC's
Oh
team.
yeah.
And
What a list.
this deck was
What a
deja. It
list.
was a deja vu because both him and Xander running it, so it was kind of like that's why I think I was setting your stream yesterday. Like I'm gonna see Oswald in my dreams tonight, just ripping through
They're
reality.
100-0 against everyone, and this deck rules. It is insane. Its lines are strong, and it is such a powerful powerhouse of a deck. And the new edition, I know the last time we saw Zan play this deck, he wasn't running this 3-drop Queen, which is a
Yes.
new edition. And what do you think about that card?
Okay, so I've thought about it so much this weekend because like the minute I saw it, I'm like, what are you doing here? Because we all agreed that we weren't playing you because we all know in Lucana, if it comes into play and the effect waits a turn, it almost might as well not happen because
Hmm.
people are gonna say get out. But like I think where I've come to and what some people have said on the internet and what I've been thinking about, like the thing I thought about is there's so many cards I don't want to see in this deck that the queen is now not target number one because everybody else is a
Right.
problem. So if you have like an Along Came Zeus, you're like, well, do I want to use it on the queen? Because honestly, I'm saving it for that silly crab or Hiram or something. So that's one of
Hmm.
my theories is that she's less scary now. Something that somebody pointed out is that you are filtering your deck over and over again, that this filters it more. So maybe those cards start coming back up to the top again. Um, and I mean, looking for items is good. It's just, yeah, it is kind of crazy. What are your thoughts on the fact that she came from obscurity to suddenly being in the top two?
I faced against this deck yesterday actually on stream, and the queen was really efficient. To like you said, filtering out the deck and actually finding a free popsicle at all times feels quite nice. Because if it's three or less, you play it exerted, and these one drop items do not care about being exerted alongside with
Yeah.
workshop too. So like your hit target if you do is 8, 10, 12 items that you can play for free feels quite efficient. And then if you want to really play your quote for free as well, you can do that. So now you have 16 targets that you can play for free with this card. So it's like almost a better Oswald. It's just one. It's just a little bit slower, but it still gets the job done. And like you said, since you're filtering so much, those cards are going to come back.
Yeah, right.
It's just the amount of filtering this deck does is insane. I mean, you saw how many times it whiffed, but you found the cards again.
I know. I was like, are we going to watch someone mill themselves? Do I have to tell the audience what milling yourself means? And the answer is check yourself before you deck yourself. And I think Zan was at a point in one game. I took a screenshot. I sent it to my chats I was in just because it was one person with 6 ink and an empty board. And then Zan, every inch of his mat was filled with something, an item, ink, is discard. It was just, I don't know how many cards. It had to be 4 or 5. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah.
But the value, like you mentioned, the synergy is absolutely bananas between having that Bella on turn one, then you have Oswald, and right from that moment forward, every time you ink, he's doing some gambling,
Things right.
and then Queen,
E-
and then right into the Duck, and then right. So it's just it's too much.
Everything is gonna find an item. Everything's gonna find an item
Well,
at some point, and that's the big bad, right? Like I asked this question, and I want to ask everyone, like, what is the amount of Oswald hits in a game that makes it feel like Oswald was worth it?
I mean, I don't know. I said in the stream, I was like, "Hey guys, is the highs worth the lows? Because the lows were
Lows are
devastating.
low,
They were,
right?
especially when you have like two Oswalds out and you ink twice in a turn and you get 4 whiffs in a row. Now that being
Hmm.
said, your next turn you're going to do a Queen or a Scrooge, so like every whiff is a inevitability to get to those. So it's like I don't know. It's a way to get closer to the items, and if the items aren't there, Oswald will get you there faster. So it's not his fault they're not there. If
Right.
anything,
Uh,
he's helping you find
right.
them.
Yeah, no, it's a very again, I love an emotional roller coaster in of a card this is because when it hits, you feel like you're the greatest player of all time, and then when it misses, you're just like upset. But I think having a lot of conversations with Oswald believers, it's just like, yeah, if it hits once, we won. Like it's fine because it's only a two drop. It's not like you invested a lot for it, and it soaks up over removal whether you like it or not. So it's a win-win if it just hits once. Has been kind of been the like once or twice is a win regardless of it. So it's an emotional roller coaster that I'm an enjoyer of, but it's a very silly and mad crazy card.
The last deck list, so let me go back. We talked about Emerald Steel 1, Emerald Steel 2. We talked about Ruby Sapphire. We talked about Sapphire Steel, another Emerald Steel, a Sapphire. But then it's the winner. And this deck was a juggernaut, and in a very funny way. It was the kind of deck that's like, I really don't care what you're up to over there. I'm just going to keep
Mm-hmm.
driving my flooding the board, questing, having my board wiped, flood the board, quest, have my board wiped. And it's just kind of, I don't want to say the deck plays itself because it doesn't. And I never want to say a deck is easy because anything with bounce requires a lot of knowledge of when to do
Mm-hmm.
those things. But I watched every round that Steven was in up until the final. And
Mm-hmm.
both of them were against Emerald Steel. And both of them were like, I'm going to make you discard. And he's like, you're not. And that was the story for 4 games in a row. He just went, no, no, no.
No, can't do anything. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's such a funny deck because it's nothing fancy. In fact, it's you have some funny things in there, like Maleficent. She's back. Set one Maleficent, then
She's
quest for
back.
2.
She's back. We quest, bounce it back, and do it all over again. It's just I love the Amethyst Steel in this format because it's just gonna do what it's been doing and win a bunch of games regardless of what the meta looks like. Because it's just such a I'm gonna do whatever it takes to win the game, and I don't care really of what you're doing.
Yeah, we've talked about the LCCC, and I was thinking about watching that game with Sailor against Spessy, and how Sailor was probably like, this freaking little dorky deck does dorky stuff with Honey Marin, and you're like, yeah, Honey Marin, but still, like, it has to feel terrible when like a little
Mhm.
deck that's like making whoopee cushion fart sounds
and
peels ahead of
just
you.
gaining one lore on the way. It's just playing the white rose, the goats, bouncing them back around. The new addition of King Cobra is Giant Cobra. I keep
King
calling him
Cobra, I like
Cobra,
that more
but
though.
it definitely feels like a king because it's just such a powerful tool to finish out games. You discard a card to help your dog, and you just get 2 lore for free. And the worst part is, it's a 4/4 with a vanish, yes, but it's still a really frustrating card to get rid of if you're not running silly little one drop actions.
I know. And it's interesting because he even played against silly little one drop actions, but I feel like Giant Cobra is very similar to Doc, where it's like you're not going to see him until it's too late. Like people
Mm-hmm.
aren't putting that down just for fun. They're holding it, they're
Yeah.
waiting until that moment where it's like, I already won. My value is out of
Right.
it. You don't get rid of him. I don't care. I already got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, yeah, it's funny how
Yeah.
that card, I completely dismissed it as kind of like, well, Vanish, it's not really a thing right now. We'll see how that plays out. And then people are like, no, you don't see. It's just another way that I can get a little bit more lore.
It's. I mean, you should love that card because it's a gathering your knowledge with legs. Well, no legs actually.
Yeah,
It's a
actually, just
snake.
like a body. It
But
literally is on a body, no legs.
it's actually yeah exactly, and it's such a good card.
It is, and it's a 4/4. So surviving, it can do some beefy snake body slams.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. This deck is just it's funny because it's just the most expensive card is 4, and then after that they're just bouncing stuff, and I don't know. It was very funny watching
Yeah.
this deck. It almost feels like they have removal. I mean, they have a fox and then the strength of reaching fire and crab, but mostly they're just kind of being a problem and then having their
Mm-hmm.
opponent waste time trying to deal with them.
Yeah, essentially, it's such a powerful deck, and it has an incredible position going into potentially a lot of sapphire heavy decks.
Yeah. So I think this deck it does look deceptively easy because you're like, wow, there's not really a lot, but yeah, I think it's all about bouncing, being responsible with your bouncing. Because that Benja we saw
Yeah.
in one match, he bounced and then got rid of like a Lucky Dime and a Shield of Arendelle, which is one card we didn't talk about. Shield of Arendelle is actually a card that is something that surprised me too this weekend. Where it's just another item that I forgot about. It's set 5, who cares? But it's one where you banish it, which is not a problem with this deck.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and, and then you get resist. So you make your little crab Zeus proof. Use Zeus proof the crab.
That's really that's wow. Yeah, that's actually not just a one drop that you can play extra. Yeah, that's insane. And you can even add a bodyguard into it with Fortisphere too if you really want to
Oh, I saw that
get
too.
crazy with. Yeah. These items not only draw a card, it's just they're pesky. Fortisphere is pesky, Popsicle is pesky, and then with the addition of hey, by the way, resist one. By the way, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, and
It's
we
scary to
saw
say.
them. And this is another deck where these items. I mean, I sometimes just forget that Fortis here. I'm like, yeah, you get to draw a card, and then the crab eats it, etc., etc. But yeah, that bodyguard can make it where you say no, you have to go through the Scrooge McDuck. You have to go
Mm-hmm.
through Hiram first, and
Right.
something where they're like, well, I didn't want to. I wanted to quest, so it just makes them make these terrible trades. These very what do they call it? Non-ideal plays. I don't know. There's a term
Yeah.
they use. Non-optimal
Not
plays,
optimal. Sure.
suboptimal. So it is very funny watching them mess with you with Shield of Arendelle and Fortosphere. And yeah, knowing that, let's see here. I can count really fast. 4 plus 4 plus 4. So that's 12, 14, 16, 19 items. So a third of your
Yeah.
deck. It's just items, 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 items.
And you have 7, 10 characters who can search a little bit deeper to find them.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it came down to game 3, and Stevens just said, I'm afraid of,
I'm better.
I
I'm
don't need
faster.
items. I have Benja. I brought him out of my bulk bin. He was at the bottom, but now he's at the top. So,
I'm glad he's back. He's such a good little two lore gainer that just absolutely wrecks items. The
so
item hate is real.
yeah. And so that tournament, I was talking about it with Clara, and I said, wow, it's kind of crazy to think about that. I mean, not a single Amber deck made it in the top. I guess this means that maybe Amber's just not viable. And, we didn't see any Steel Song, we didn't see any Blurple. So I guess the meta is pretty much dead. And then I pulled up the top 8 for the other tournament. So I was looking at the proof decks, and I went, oh,
Before we get into the top of that 64 invitational tournament, about 19 of those decks before going into the top was Sapphire Steel. 19,
Sapphire.
which was
19 was Sapphire Steel. And the top 6, let me look here. Uh, 3 made it in the top, which is more than the other tournament, but still, wow. Yeah, and so
yeah,
I'm going to do the math. It's live. This is Katie doing math. You said 19. We're going to do 19 divided by 64 right now. It
about
is
30%.
29.6. That is 30%. He was right.
Math.
Yeah. All right. Follow Ybreezy for more math and how to do it. Um, so, so yeah, that tournament was in the DMV area, which is hilarious, but it's uh, mm, it's up there. It's by
It's
DC,
there.
Virginia, and some other place.
Maryland. Yeah.
It's kind of like apparently the tri-state area is a real thing. I never knew that. I always thought that was like a joke, and they're like, no, there's a tri-state area and the greater whatever. So the East Coast is doing lots of things where they have.
Doofenshmirtz was trying to actually conquer a real place.
Yeah, they made little names, and anyway, a lot of it's gonna rhyme. So I wish I could tell you like, oh, it's all so different. It's not so different, unfortunately.
It's
Let's.
early on where people are playing what they are a little bit more familiar with. People are kind of playing what's been talked about the most. So it has a lot of room to grow, but the kind of the gist of it has been similar. Wow,
Yeah,
this is yeah.
this one's called Turbo Glam, which I like that name. I was like trying to look like what's glam about. Is it because it's shiny? Is there objects? This one's kind of like if Keely Birds and the other deck that Aaron ran just
Mhm.
smashed them into each other, and they took some from each, and they said, "What about this?" And the answer
Yeah.
is worked pretty good. It's in the top 8. This one's by Will Russell, and it's got a captain hook. I always love to see that because he's like, "I'm here for you. I'm a one drop. I'm not Sticky Mickey. I'm gonna help my best friend Smee." That's how I feel when I see him.
Yeah, it's getting that one damage every turn off the board feels good, and you get to trade a clean trade with the 3 drop bell as well.
Yeah, and we see a Scepter of Arendelle, which is a set 1 card. Amazing. And
Yeah, it's
it,
back.
yeah, and you don't have to banish it. So that's a good news or bad news because banishing really isn't a big deal with that crab. But at the same time, it gives you support, which I think is important because we do have some little weenie noodle arm characters here.
Mhm.
So just a few. I mean, it'd be nice if Hiram could swing for more than one, and the Scepter of Arendelle says,
You
don't
can.
worry. I can make with a crab and a Tamatoa and a scepter. Suddenly, Hiram is a 5/6, which is a lot scarier.
Yeah. Wow. That is a very scary crab. Wow.
Yeah, so
Yikes.
he's pumping up that rat, man, mouse, I don't know. And then we see Grama Tala, which is another kind of digging, very shallow digging. So it's just very
Mhm.
different. But I think Grandma's a little bit more valuable in the sense that you get to keep a card and then you get
Yeah.
to, you don't have to wait a turn. The queen has
Hmm.
to be like, don't worry, just let me one turn. Please don't do anything. So it's
One.
just fundamentally a different deck, but not too different. Is this more similar to the one that you've been playing?
No, I've been playing the first Zan deck without the Queen. That's the one I like because I think Queen, I just couldn't find it honestly. I really enjoy this deck specifically because it does what Kiwi does well, which is play a bunch of nice body characters on the curve and win out while keeping your items as a basically a draw package with your shiny new crab that's really strong. And I like the Grand Matala edition in this list because we can sing every single song we have with that an additional 4 drop.
That is so crazy that up until this set, I think it's because I've never played Sapphire Steel. But even
Hmm.
then, I played Amber Steel. I just never thought about Pete as a singer. But that man has pipes on him.
Yeah,
He was singing all weekend long, and I don't know how that escaped my mind that he can sing. Let him sing. He's not questing for a lot, so he might as well do something.
might as well. And if you want to get rid of it, you're gonna challenge it at 3-3. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it's all about like a favorable trade, and it's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So this one is interesting. I'm glad to see that when we talk about blue steel, it can make you suffer in so many ways. It's not
Hmm.
just one way; it's many ways.
It's all the ways. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
But then Amber, here it is. I said,
Back.
"There's no Amber. Amber's
So back.
dead." I was ready. I was like burying it. I started digging in the backyard, and then someone said, "Wait, come back inside." And this one is got Penny with the good parents.
Okay. Not the orphan.
Yeah, not the
Not the
orphan.
orphan.
Penny's
Don't
parents
ruin.
are very notably alive.
And she is quite cool. I mean, I'm more used to seeing the more of the Steel Song with Miss Bianca, which is one of my favorite cards coming into the set for this new Amber Steel that might have some legs. But this Penny is quite interesting because it does basically when you play it, you heal for 2 and gain a resist 1, if I remember correctly.
Yes, and
And it's
it's
just interesting. Being able
yeah,
to resist into Donald is quite nice.
yeah, and resist is something that I think is underrated. I think people are like it's underrated. It's probably rated fine, but I do think resist is something that can be quite nice, especially because it's not just buffing up and giving extra willpower. It's just kind of something that's hard to get around. And then when
Mhm.
you add that to like something like Pluto, where you're a bodyguard or a Donald, then it's annoying. It's very annoying
Yeah,
for your opponent.
absolutely.
And this person is obviously they've joined the I Find Them a Platinum Club. They said, I don't have any
Anyways.
items, so I might as well just take you down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just needed at this point. I think if you're not running it, we're doing something wrong. It's just much needed help for us. And Gantu. Gantu's here.
It's which is very funny, right? Like the Gantu, he finally he was like people made fun of him. I don't know if you guys know this, but
Yeah.
people were making fun of Gantu like pretty meanly to the point where Liam had to protect him, and he has an orphanage for lost wayward Gantus. Uh, but then we got a better Gantu, and we're like, wow. And then we got this Gantu, which I have seen him do well and not well at the same time because
Yeah.
he doesn't he's like enemy number one. You just see him and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not gonna let that. And then four is not that hard to do. So maybe that's why Penny's good, is because
Hmm.
I'm coming for you. The minute I see that Gantu, I'm like, not in my house.
Yeah, it's frustrating card to deal with, but you have to kind of deal with it. The 2-4 is just I'm very familiar with those two numbers, and they are not great in this game at this point.
No, two is not enough and four is not enough. I need five
It's
and
nothing.
three, please, something.
Yeah,
Even that's
yeah.
not enough because yeah, with Coil, we're all scared. But if you look at
Everything is weak, and yeah,
but they
it's
all
tough.
are little weenies. I mean, the biggest, strongest character is Lawrence, who's only momentarily a 4/4. So this deck is all
Yeah.
about just going wide and protecting guys when you can, and hopefully just swarming and reflooding the board and getting that card draw with the Rapunzel and I guess and Doc if you have to Doc in a pinch. Um, And yeah, there's some pirate synergy where we have the Smee has a piglet and a Captain Hook. So there's some synergy here, and it's cool seeing that Amber Seal. This is not Amber Seal's song. If there's no Ariel, I legally will not call it song. Um,
Yeah, Ariel has to be
or at
in the
least one
deck to make
singer.
this.
There's no singers in here. So this is just an Amber
Yeah.
Seal.
No, there is. There's a singer. The Cinderella's a singer.
No. I'm like, no. Okay,
No,
fine.
that doesn't count.
It's an
Yeah, yeah.
Amber Steel small song. Song lowercase s.
Poems.
Yeah, just a little song. But then we go back. We're like, oh,
Steel
but it's different
haikus. Well, we're
again.
back. We're so back, but it's different.
It is because there's this big dude that costs 7 in here.
80s.
Yeah,
It's
which then
back.
I hear R&B going Hades'em. That's what I hear now every time I see Hades is because
Yeah, but it's such a good card. Like we've forgotten about this card because it's big and it has 3 on it. So it was getting like Medusa out of the world every single time. It just felt bad. But now it's back. Medusas are out, and now we can get rid of anything we want, and it feels so great.
it does. And this one, I mean, we got 8 crabs. I like that he calls it a combo deck because yeah, it's kind of doing a little bit of every. I mean, it's doing everything but aggro. I mean, the
Mhm.
only aggro kind of thing is we could have Belle singing some songs. The Fire of the Cannons I hear is quite helpful in this meta right now. Which now that I say that, I'm like, wait, why? But
Bomb the burbs.
yeah, get rid of
We want to bomb the burbs,
anytime
get rid
it's
of them,
on site.
bomb. Same thing with Oswald's. Like it
Oh
just
yeah, that's true. It's an
for one
Oswald.
drop Oswald removal, it feels quite nice. Like it's not the greatest thing, but those 2 cards are going to be everywhere. So having a free one, well, not free, but like a one cost action to get rid of them, it's not the end of the world.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, a turn 1, play a popsicle, draw a card, play Bell. Turn 2, fire the cannons, play another popsicle, draw a card, and then Bell's still there and can challenge into something. And then turn
Yeah.
3, you're already cooking, you're ramping, and why don't you get Hiram out here? So there's like
Hmm.
lots of fun little synergy because I mean,
It
you
does it
know,
all.
yeah. So I can see why having just a 1 cost, slip it in on a turn to just be like, get out of that stupid rabbit.
Oh yeah,
I'm so
there's
tired.
annoying cards with 2 on it, and you get rid of them with this, and it feels good.
Yeah, so we see Great Stone Dragon again. I think Great Stone
That's a
Dragon
mod.
is a blue is now the recycling color. It's like I recycle.
It goes into the blue bin, and
Yeah,
it does come back.
and
And
it goes. I'm gonna turn you into ink, and that's very nice. That Tipo might be gone, but now he's ink, and it's a circle of
it's never
life.
forgotten. Yeah, it feels good. It feels like Great Stone Dragon now not being as much important in Ruby Sapphire. Now it's becoming a Steel Sapphire combo piece is definitely something that might make Tomas cry, but it's just part of evolution.
I do like to think that maybe it should have been called like the Circle of Life more than Great Stone Dragon, but who knows? Great Stone Dragon is still pretty cool. I will not say anything negative. I don't want the wrath of Tomas. But then we see another deck. It's kind of familiar, but we don't see the little uninkable Maleficent, but we do see Friends on the Other Side. So this person said, I want cards, please.
I want to draw more, and they're gonna do that. We have gotten our Friends on the Other Side and Strength of Ranging Fire, which is two of the best songs in the game. I'm never going to talk bad anything about Friends on the Other Side after a year of service they have provided to the game, and they have docks at the same time, which you would think it contradicts each other, but no, not really, because you all of your guys are little cheap little
Yeah.
gremlins, so you can just play them and dock away anyway, and it's fine.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm like looking here. I mean, the majority of the deck is 3 costs. I mean, we
Yeah.
have a little bit of 1 cost, a little bit of 2 costs, and it's like, okay, you guys can sing Friends. I mean, you got lots of singers. Pete's can sing it, White Rose can sing it. So I think it is very important because when everybody who's ever played, I think Amber Steel or Amethyst Steel knows that it can stall out so hard and you feel
Mhm.
embarrassed because you just have to sit there and top deck and you're like, I don't feel good, Grandma. Uh,
Yeah,
it doesn't
he
feel
does
good to
it
just
all.
play a Pete and have him just standing there like I don't know, just I'm scared. So I do think that this deck is probably more towards what I would play because I would rather have a plan B with some card draw. Um,
Mhm.
but also the first 3 cards in the deck are all about card draw too. So this person is like, I'm not gonna run out of cards. Not happening.
Yeah,
Uh, but they took it all the way to the top 8. So I think this was our last of the top 4 before we get to the top 4. Maybe we'll see.
nice.
Oh my gosh!
I love purple amethyst steel. What's up?
Look at this. Can you believe it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was getting excited for no reason. Well, I
No,
mean, okay, it's exciting. It's exciting because it's playing, I think, one of the more underrated cards. I wish it was inkable. The one, the only aerial that gets you 5 lore.
I
It's
know.
incredible. It's strong. Are you going to have more items than your opponent all the time? No. But any matchup that isn't against Sapphire, that amazing card is going to gain you 5 lore and potentially 10 if you have the dimes on board.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that Sapphire stresses me out is because there are some very expensive, very uninkable cards. Now, Tipo can help you. Tipo's there to say, don't worry, baby, I got
Mm-hmm.
you. If we need to, we're going to put some stuff in here, secret on the down low. And Fishbone Quill is going to do the same thing. So that can kind of alleviate the anxiety of having an
Fail?
Ariel or a Hades in your opening hand or a Lucky Dime. You're like, I don't have time for this right now.
Yeah.
But that Ariel is interesting. Like you said, in the mirror, it's a little bit of a gamble, but why not gamble? This game is all about it. They don't have Oswald, so instead they're gambling with the odds of not being in a mirror match where the other person has more items.
Yeah. It feels it's fine. It's a one of. It's not the end of the. We can cool it away if it feels bad. But the Hades is back too. It's just it's an interesting take on the Sapphire Steel deck that we've kind of got used to very quickly.
Yes, yeah, I think, and that's one of the things I've seen in the past couple weekends of tournaments, and we've seen in the ICL too, is that you don't know what your opponent. There, it used to be. I feel like in the first four sets, when you sat down
Mhm.
and you saw the first two cards, you could guess with pretty 80% certainty what build they were going to have from those cards because there just wasn't a lot of room to be creative. And now it's scary because you don't know
Yeah.
what they're going to do. What's after turn 3, kind of, maybe, but I think we've entered a very interesting time in Lorcana where we've seen, this is our fifth blue steel deck we've looked at, and all of
Mhm.
them are a little bit different, and so it makes things like a Pete hard because you're like, when do I play this stupid Pete? I don't know when you're gonna do anything. You're scaring me so bad.
Yeah, we never know. We never
We
know
never
these
know.
days. We never know these days, and it's kind of nice.
It
It's kind
is.
of nice.
It's
I like the unknown. I mean, now there are some decks that we kind of know what we're doing. Like Amethyst Steel is essentially the same
Yeah,
deck,
that's true. That one's
no
not
matter
very
what we're gonna run
creative.
into. But with how many options, and I don't know if that's a good thing, is considering how strong Sapphire Steel has been. The variants are limited, but they do significantly different things, and it's quite intriguing to see how it evolves and which one comes to be the best. Because I think, like, I like the Oswald version, but is it the best? I don't think
Most
so.
fun.
It's the most fun because you get the gamble, and these are the questions I think over the next 2 months we're gonna learn without a DLC. But
Let me
that's
see.
me.
Were there one? We're just sorry. I just
Ah,
really wanted to showcase
oh,
this
we're about to see my
one
favorite deck.
specific card. Let me zoom out a little bit here. I got way too
Dante's
excited.
looking gorgeous.
Well, I was trying to see. There was three in the top, and none of them had
Ah,
Oswald. Oswald didn't make it in the top. I just thought maybe I had hallucinated that. But yeah, no Oswald in the top. Only one Oswald, and it was piloted by Aaron, and it made it to the top two. So
yeah.
Oswald's still something, but it seems like the
People are like,
winningest.
let's stop gambling, guys. That's what happened.
Oh, but it's so
We just
fun.
had an AA meeting, and I think we realized it was bad for us. But there are some DJs like me who just can't stop trying to flip a lucky dime
Well, we
off the
can't play
top.
Mufasa, so we might as well get to do this. But anyway,
Don't
so
sleep on Steve Fossa. Steve Fossa is quite nice.
okay, we'll see it if it's in the top four. We have four
It's
more
not.
decks to go. Maybe we're gonna
Spoilers.
see it.
Spoilers. Steve Fossa did not make the cut.
Oh, but we do
Best deck
have
in format. Best deck in format.
Cherna
I'm a big fan.
dogs.
Dogs. Who let the dogs out?
Oh, oh, oh,
Oh,
oh,
oh, oh.
and
Emerald.
it's
Amber did.
yeah. But look at all these weird cards that you never see.
I can talk about this deck
Yeah, go
all day,
crazy.
every
This
day.
tell me all
So
about it.
this deck goes vroom vroom in a such a unique fashion because you might be wondering, traditionally your aggro decks play just a bunch of little guys, and you win early or you lose early. This deck does a little things but differently. We have these new cards who are incredible. We have the Lady One Drop, where you can shift into this 5 drop, which essentially says you can get this. You can 2 cards that are cost 2 or less from your discard. This is quite important because the card next to it, Tramp, allows you to draw amount of cards depending on how many characters you have on board, and then discard that many. So now we have filtered bunch of cards. And guess what? It says 7 cost, right? You're looking at that Tramp, you're like 7 cost. You would never play this deck on an aggro because you do because it's one less in cost per character. And spoilers, you're running so many one drops. It's so good.
I mean,
It
Little
does it
John's
all.
here. Look at him. Nala and Little John. We got the
Best
green
cards in
and
the
the
deck.
emerald and the
Best
ember.
cards in the deck. You look at a bell, you're not scared anymore. You're looking at these strength of raging fires. They have to get rid of these cards because if you don't, you have the Merryweather and the 2-drop tramp who's going to give them strength to smack into these 3/3 bodies that are everywhere. It's so exhausting. It's so powerful. And you did all this, right? You're doing so much good work. You played a bunch of these 1-drops, 2-drops, gain a lot of lore, all that stuff. Now you have piled into this large amount in your discard pile, and you play Chernobog for free. It has been such a good combination. It's so good. I love it. It gets absolutely melted by Emerald Steel, but we don't have to worry about that.
Whatever.
It's fantastic.
Emerald Steel, what? I've never
We're
seen that make
going
the top
fast,
8.
filtering our hands, and playing Chernobog and Tramp in the same turn most of the time. And that is really strong considering it's a 2/6 and a 9/9 at the same turn.
Yeah, I learned a term because I kept hearing our dear friend JDZ goes, "I want to play OTK. I want to play OTK," and I was like, "Okay, I know DKP. I know all these acronyms. I know on the OTP and OTG, and no, OTK is one turn knockout." And it feels like this one. Obviously, you don't have the one turn knockout of like a dime, but it feels like a one turn fled the board to
Yeah, essentially,
a very scary
essentially.
amount.
This variant is running a very unique and fun card in the Dale. It is essentially more juice to your Chernobog, and your 0/4 characters are now 3/4s, and that trades with a lot of things if you really want to trade some pesky characters on the play.
It's one card I'm desperately looking for. I was wondering, like, I wonder if the prince has any home in here. I mean, I guess there's a lot of
Yeah,
two.
no, the 3/2 Prince has
Oh
a
no,
lot of
I'm talking
variants.
about the 0/5
Oh,
bodyguard because there's not a lot of bodyguards in
that
here.
also, yes.
Okay,
In the LCCCC, level 9001 is actually playing that prince, the zero five
yes,
prince,
I had a
and
good
it's
hypothesis.
quite nice. Yeah, it's a giving like 4 into that prince makes it unstoppable, and it's really strong.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is so scrappy. I mean, and it has my favorite combo of a little baby Pegasus into a big baby Pegasus, and they're all like, "We're flying!" And that's one of my favorite mental images ever. Is my entire board just floating in the air for one turn.
So good, so powerful. Yeah, no, this deck is quite interesting. I think the Megara is a addition that I'm not too familiar with, but it does the job. I mean, it's good. It's cool. It's yeah. I like this deck quite a lot, and I think has a lot of room in a field full, absolutely full of just bunch of annoying Sapphire decks. This deck just beats those for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
It does scare me. The only thing I'll say about the Megara is like your card draw is almost 100% dependent on. I mean, not almost. It is dependent on Tramp and Rapunzel. So you gotta make that work because otherwise Megara is a 3 cost that's can't be played. She's not inkable and unplayable if you don't have a lot of cards. So,
Yeah,
but there's so many other little guys. I'm not afraid. It'll work out.
yeah, that's the one card that I would like. At that point, if I want to run a 3-drop, I think I know it's a risky one. I think running like the Prince Philip might feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Just depending on how like if you've seen enough Let the Storm Rage on the board or stuff like that. But overall, like it's very flexible in the sense of like you can cut the kit if you feel like it. If you want to play more 2-drops, you can. If you want to play Merfolks, you can. The deck has a lot of room to evolve into whichever deck is more persistent and more around your area. Honestly, it has a lot of flexible rooms in there.
Yeah. And it's who let the dogs out? I just think that's kind of fun.
Sure.
Baja. Baja Ben. Baja Men? Baja Boys. Why would it be? It's alliteration. Why would it be Baja Men? Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
they.
silly. Blurple! Okay, so it's
Oh,
getting exciting because I asked the question the other day
I
to
like the
someone
stack.
and I said, "What happened to Blurple?" And they said, "I don't know." And we all just like gave up. But look at this tech here of the queen. The queen says, "Hey Tamatoa, hey what are those items? Yeah, they're back in your deck, you big dummy." Uh and that queen, it's a new one. It's a legendary. That's not what it says. It says choose 3 cards from your opponent's discard and put them in the bottom of their deck. Gain 3 lore. And if you happen to have a princess, it's actually 4. And there's a lot of princesses in this game, but it is
Yeah,
very fun for all these silly sharks looking for actions and all these crabs looking for little items. The queen can come in and say, "I will bury them."
Hmm.
Just give me one turn. So Queen is very just give me a turn and I'll get to it. So that's the only downside there with her.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I like it. I like Blurple. I want to see where it goes. The Queen Edition, you're right, is very very fascinating in the sense of like you can get rid of problems. Uh, it's nice.
Yeah,
It's quite
because
nice.
there's so
And
much.
four
Yeah,
reach.
there's so much setting up in most Sapphire decks with items. They're doing
Hmm.
lots of team things up. I mean, Sapphire items are Sapphire actions. They're trying to massage their discard and do things because they're like, don't worry, I have a plan. So it's very cool. I think Zenulus was the one that pointed out that this is a disruptive card where you're going to throw them off of their meticulously built master plan. And then you
Yeah,
have other fun things like there's this guy in here. I don't know if you see him.
it's pretty cool. He's pretty cool six drop. Some say the best six drop in the game.
Yeah,
Some say
not
the best they
crab.
have ever seen. Uh,
Not crab is Cusco. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Cusco. It's a disruptive card. It's a removal tool by itself, and he looks fantastic. And I'm really excited to see it being played. Especially I think I would like. I don't know if I like. Is that three Hades? I can't tell.
It is three
380
Hades. Yeah.
is three Hades too much? I think so. I think
It's a
you can
lot.
spread the love to two Cuscos, two Hades, and keep the two Elsas. But it's definitely a deck that just has been always a good deck, and like the pilots that I've been familiar with this Blurple lifestyle have been incredibly powerful with it. So I'm really excited to see what this does, and I do enjoy their like mechanics in which they take advantage of.
And second place in the 64 tournament. That means nobody can ignore this because there's no way this deck didn't face a Sapphire
Right,
Steel deck all day. It's guaranteed they faced it
that
once.
disruption
Uh, so, so yeah, Blurple's back on the menu, boys.
never left.
But who won? Steel Song. It made me
Steel
feel
Song
Steel wrong.
did.
I felt Steel wrong about everything after seeing this, but it's got it all. You know?
It does it all. It does it all. It has an. I have a big question because I still don't quite understand it. Because you asked this question to people, you probably did your investigation a lot more than I have. Why is there a location in here?
Because okay, I'm not going to explain it right because it's kind of like high level brain stuff. But essentially, if you're playing against, I think specifically Ruby Sapphire or a Sapphire Steel that doesn't hit Bell, it just
Hmm.
stays there and gets lore for 3 turns because they have nothing that can
Interesting.
deal 4 damage for a while. And
Mm,
even Bell can't sing a song that deals with locations. So basically,
interesting.
she is a girl. Basically, Neverland is like a Nala that is gonna gain lore
On a
without questing.
location.
So I have seen that. Yeah, it's just kind of an investment where if you are playing against a deck that's doing other stuff, then and it's gonna slow them down too because then they
Hmm.
instead of questing, they're dealing with your silly little island and they have to make the choice of how long do I let this island hang out here? And they can get rid of it. It's going to be gone by like turn 4 or 5, but for their 2 or 3 turns, it's just sitting there and getting lore
Hmm.
for nothing.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like it always, every time I see it on the list, I'm like, why? Why?
I
Why are they
know. I
doing
was
this?
just like,
It's
yeah,
just like,
but Bivens did it. And if Bivens did it, I'm like, well, then it makes sense. Everybody
yeah,
stop asking
I saw
questions.
him do it. I'm like, oh, this card's good now. Okay, got it. Cool, 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 cool. And yeah, it's interesting to see it. Like if that what if that's what it's used for, pretty 6,000 IQ that I just don't simply have. But my favorite card that I got added to this is Miss Bianca. That card is such an interesting value tool for Steel Song because it plays songs that are a little bit cheaper, and that's exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, it's all of it is the synergy in this deck is very cool. It's kind of cool that I mean
Mhm.
this is a songs deck. Everyone's singing something. Even the Gantu who has like the tax, it doesn't play to singers. So you're like, I'm not afraid. I got the whole chorus here.
Mhm.
So and it plays a very fun card that I am very excited to see back in the meta. And we saw do some very heavy lifting in the ICL with Habibi. Is World's Greatest Criminal Mind because
So good.
it fears nothing. There's nothing that I mean. It'd be cool if it could deal with more. It's kind of a, I mean, Chernodog doesn't like this card one bit because it feels so cheap to have a Chernobog smash down. The ground shakes, and then Cinderella just says,
Yeah, yeah, no, and it gets rid of the scariest thing of all, which is that big stinking crab for
"Yes."
essentially free. and it's good. It's such a great addition into the deck. I know they used to run it back in like set two as well, but getting rid of bigger bodies that I think with the game getting more. I don't like using the word power creep, but it definitely feels like it. Getting rid of those strong, big bodied characters with crazy effects is quite nice.
Yeah, and I mean, all but three of the characters in this deck. No, that's not true. All but two. Only Daisy and Smee cannot sing World Greatest Criminal Mind. Everybody else, they know the words, they
Hmm.
can sing it. And it makes it
A
very
great song.
cool that you
It's
can
a
basically
great song.
lean into that giant 5'8" crab and you're not actually. You're just singing a song and he's to the deck or banished. I don't know. What do they call it? It's a discard, right? Is your discard?
Discard. It's a
Yeah,
discard.
to the
Yeah.
discard. And then another one where I find them with Platinum, they say, I can sing it and I'm not afraid of literally anything. It's a really fun deck, and I'm so happy that I was wrong. I'm happy. You
It's
should be,
back.
yeah. So overall, we saw most decks represented across these. I'm trying to think. We didn't see Steel Ruby, which is a deck I'm praying that people build back because it's so cool. Removal,
I have not
removal.
seen a good one. So whoever's watching this and they're like, guess what? I have the greatest Ruby Steel deck of all time. Please let us know because I've been dying to find one. And I've been looking at a lot of these lists. I really want Ruby Steel to work because it's just two of the best ink colors in the game. And the fact that they just don't work together is insanely
Removal,
weird.
removal. It's just
Yeah,
removal,
it's just,
removal. Removal with
they
a side of
instantly
removal
fill it
all
out.
day.
And to me, it just doesn't make sense. And so, if you're out there playing Ruby Steel and you're like, Breezy, you're wrong and stupid, I'm going to show you the good list. I would love to be wrong because I've been looking at them and all of them are not great. And I want to see it great.
Speaking of decks, I want to be great. I don't think Bleen Spurt Squirt is what Brandon called it. Didn't love Spurt
I
Squirt.
hate
Didn't
that. I
like
hate
that.
that.
Don't
I hate
like,
that.
but we're going to call it its government name, Emerald and Sapphire. I don't think that's a good deck. But we'll see. I've
Baymax, come on. I believe
It's
in
a fun deck,
Baymax.
but it is such a stressful deck. You are hoping it's just any deck where you're like, don't worry, I'm going to make this work. And meanwhile, your opponent's like, okay. And they just keep doing what they're doing. I think it's just such a gamble. It's a gamble with the game itself versus a card.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your whole plan is like, don't worry, I'll get to Ink Geyser. And then I'll be able to build back faster than you. But you don't even know. We have so many people are playing Sapphire where it's just being like, I'm going to ramp back and you're not, isn't even a good
Yeah.
gamble. So
Yeah.
I want to see that deck make a top eight so I can believe and stop being a hater and saying it's a gimmick deck. But it is a deck that I've seen fail spectacularly in two matches now. And it's not any fault of the pilot. It's just as a deck that you really need all the stars to align and your opponent to not do well.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But all we can do is keep being a believer.
Yeah. And maybe tonight we'll see it because we have an ICL tonight. Maybe it's just gonna people be like, I
Maybe.
believe in Breen, and then we kick them out because we say you're actually not allowed to say Breen in our league. We have the rules, and if you look here, it says you can't do that.
Hopefully.
So those are my final thoughts. Any final thoughts do you have from this weekend that were surprising? Any things where you're like thinking? Because I mean, next weekend is like the big, not the big, but it's like one of the bigger ones since this set came out. I think they have over
Hmm.
100 definitely people. It's an 8K, and they said they already had to up it. So what are you thinking might be some takeaways?
A few takeaways is I think we have essentially created a format where people are gonna try to find ways to build the big scary bad in the field, and if they can, if they just see it constantly, they're gonna win most games, and that's what we saw in this format in these tournaments. And alongside with that, you're right. Sapphire Emerald is just this myth that we one day will see
Believe
be
it.
successful. Bleen, I believe in Bleen, but I do also agree that the hype is just hype. I think it has not done anything, but since it's a deck that we haven't gotten a lot of history with, it does have a lot of room to grow and learn within it. But other than that, the Churn of Dogs is the best. And
You're like
Sapphire,
that's the takeaway. As we can see by the fact it made one
it
top
didn't
eight.
win.
It is my
Yeah,
favorite and it's beautiful
it
and
is
it
my
can't do
favorite
anything
deck.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly it's the best. Other than that, we are in a scary format where we're gonna see a lot of boards with thousands of items and thousands of ink just to be just to do like 5 lore, and it's just gonna be interesting overall.
Oh, I mean, there's one game I saw this week. They went. I think it's 15 lore in one turn. So just this meta's wild. Is the really? I don't think it's broken. I think people are very like nihilistic that like it's broken. The two top eights show it is not broken. This is not set two where you looked at the top eight and it was Ruby Amethyst all the way down and like two Steel Songs. It's not the Diablo meta.
Hmm.
I think we're going to see some tinkering. The tournament I looked as of last weekend, there was 220 people signed up for the Charlie's Collectible Showcase, so it's going to be a big gauntlet. This is going to be the biggest test of our hypothesis, but I don't think the meta's cooked. I do think there's some cards that are objectively more powerful than the other cards in the set, but I don't think they are unstoppable.
Yeah, yeah, it's big, scary, but is it beatable? I think so, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, just get out a dog and a very large demon.
And pirate and a Pete that has a space
Space pirate.
pirate suit on,
Space pirate. Shifty
and
Pete.
discard their hand. It's quite interesting that it has been in Lorcana. I think this is the second time that has happened where the hated deck by many turned into this deck that's going to save us. In the sense of Emerald Steel, we hated it. Now we're like, please come back. It's fine. It's okay. The water's fine, and it's
Ah.
back, and it's here to make an impact.
Honestly, did
We
it
hated
ever
it. Now
leave?
it's back.
Did it ever leave? I think we tried. We had so many hate attempts on its life. They've banned Bucky, and then they said, "Boo, get out!" And then people like Luke said no. And then you had R&B go ban the bird, and he was telling to everyone. He was going door to door, going, "Have you heard about banning the bird?" And people are like, "I won't play it anymore." But guess what? Still there. It made it into the
Still
top eight of
there.
Continentals, and now it's still there. So it never
Still
left. That's the real
I
takeaway.
it just it's a baby face now though. I think it's a baby face. I think it's a lovable little annoying little deck that's gonna win games against decks that we don't want to see more of, and it's gonna put a pin on it. And it's good. It's good. It's fine. We need it. It's a necessary evil that we all need and love.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining me and talking about this exciting meta that is just, speaking of baby faces, it's a baby face meta. You know, it's a baby and we're watching it. And so
Yeah.
next week we can reconvene and be like, well, we were idiots. So, or we're the
Can't
smartest
wait.
people alive. So I'm
That is
excited
my
for either
favorite
one. Before
thing.
you say goodbye,
Awesome.
do you have anything you want to say to the people? The people, so for people while we're recording this, there's a LCC match. So,
It's about to wrap up as well, so
but
it's neat.
yeah, but for the people that are watching, where can they find you? What's going on? What do you want to talk
Yeah.
about?
They can find me on twitch.tv/Ybreezy. They can find me there where I play a bunch of games now and talk about the game, yap about the game, scream about the game, and everything else in between. Other than that, I'm on Twitter at YBreezyS. I was going to do the whole twitter.com, but just YBreezyS. You can just search it, find me. I'm yapping there as well. And that's it. That's all the things you can find me in. I believe I'm probably forgetting things, but that's okay. But yeah, just look up Ybreezy and you'll find me. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Well, thank you very much, and I am excited. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.